जग में साचो तेरो नाम हे राम हे राम हे राम हे राम ला 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 तू माता तू ही पिता है तू ही माता तू ही पिता है तू ही माता तू ही पिता है तू ही माता तू ही पिता है तू है राधा का श्याम हे राम हे राम हे राम हे राम तू अंतर्यामी सबका स्वामी तू अंतर्यामी सबका स्वामी तू अंतर्यामी सबका स्वामी तू अंतर्यामी सबका स्वामी चरणों में चारु नाम हे राम हे राम हे राम हे राम हाँ ला 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 la la la. Hi, good morning all. So following from the previous two videos that I did in which I started the law of attraction series, this is part 3, right? How can I attract the reality that we want into our lives without having to chase after anything? Simply by aligning with the spiritual laws of the universe, right? So the first video I made was based on the point number 1 of becoming clear on that which you want. To attract your reality, you need to know what you want into your reality. In order to attract your reality, you need to be sure or be clear about what you want as your reality or as part of your reality, right? Second step was taking a step or taking a step in the direction or taking action towards acquiring or achieving or attaining that which you want, right? How can you bring into fruition that which you want? Personally, you need to align yourself with the highest good. That's the first step in bringing into your reality that which you want. Aligning with your highest good means aligning with the spiritual laws of the universe, which means causing as least harm as possible to other living beings and to other creatures, to other living creatures, right? Causing as least harm or abiding by the first yama in the Eastern tradition, or the biblical commandment, thou shalt not kill, or the foremost principle of compassion, which is at the root of every religion. And atheists would say you don't need religion, you don't even need to believe in God, right? You just need to be a good person, right? Well, part of being a good person is causing as least harm as possible to other living creatures, right? So today I would go into the third, well, not really a third step, but it is a step which I will label as number 3, in terms of attracting that which you want into your reality, is to stop taking offense for everything, right? To stop taking offense or being offended by everything, right? This has to do with feeling like you have to walk on eggshells for everything, or being around people who make you feel like you have to walk on eggshells for everything you say or do, right? um, Not being offended is a state of being free, right? In my personal opinion, and in fact it is so in reality as well. Not having the ability to have a thick skin, and being thick skinned does not mean that you are not compassionate. Being thick skinned doesn't mean that you are not empathetic, right? Being thick skinned doesn't mean that you are cold, that you have to be cold, right? Being thick skinned simply means knowing and standing in who you are solidly, knowing and standing in who you are without allowing the shallow opinions of anybody around you to penetrate your energy field, right? Knowing who you are without allowing the statements, comments, shit people say who might be around you to influence or to um, throw you off course or to distract you, right? That's what simply being thick-skinned mean, right? Because in life, people are going to have a multitude of comments about you. It's not something that you could escape. Negative comments or judgments about you, people will judge you if you say nothing or if you say everything, right? So it's up to you what you choose to do with your voice. It is up to you how you choose to utilize your voice, because you are going to be judged whether you say nothing or whether you say everything, right? So, not taking offense for everything, right? In fact, the reason I am here making this video series is because my own spiritual father would have screamed to the top of his lungs what an immoral piece of trash that I am or I was, because I was working at the government, right? And that's why I am here making these videos. That is part of the that was part of the process that led to me accomplishing what I am accomplishing right now, right? Because me not taking offense, me not having the thin skin and being like, I'm going to cry in my room, right? That would have led to me being here to speak the truth and to speak reality. I'm not saying that crying is a bad thing, right? Those who are around me, right, these days would understand what I mean. But crying is actually a sign of strength. Crying is not a sign of. I have cried up to yesterday. I've cried. I actually cry very easy, but I'm referring to a very specific situation when you're talking about truth, when you're talking about reality, not about the emotional matters such as whatever else you're going through in your life, right? I'm talking about hardcore matters of truth and reality. To stop being offended when people try to show you or to tell you something that is true, or to help you to change your behavior for the sake of truth, right? Stop being offended for those reasons, right? So likewise, this can apply in every area of our lives, right? Right, so even in relationships and all, so I will continue the conversation because it's interesting that this whole series is also tied into like relationships, or the relationships we share, whether it's workplace, friendships, romantic relationships, whatever. But the law of attraction is tied into all these things, right? So how many of us have been in relationships or are in relationships where you're just afraid to talk? You're afraid to say something because the other person might get offended, right? You're afraid to express your viewpoint, your stance, or even the truth because of because of the reaction that because one, people might think you're crazy. Two, people might think you're speaking stupidness, right? or people might just not be receptive to what you have to say, right? People might just not be receptive to what you have to say, right? Should you be offended by this? No. And even in romantic relationships and stuff, right? So I'll go off on a train here. Um, with regard to this topic of offense, right? Um, this boils down as well if you're in a romantic relationship to find a partner who has the same sense of humor that you do, right? It's just a off-topic thing that tying into this whole thing, right? If you are looking for seeking a romantic partner, find a romantic partner that has the same sense of humor or can click in the same way that you do with regard to humor, because you don't want to spend an entire lifetime having to explain every joke that you make, right? Or having to apologize for offending somebody for something that is really nothing, right? Or you don't want to be receiving long emails based on some dumb shit that you said that really did not come from a ill from a space of ill intention, right? You don't want to be going down that road where you just have to keep explaining yourself because somebody else is offended, right? There's no need to continue have to be defending yourself for being who you are. There's no need to just continuously defend yourself for being who you are, right? Now, the same case with me, for example. So you all would know by now I am vegetarian. I stand for vegetarianism, but I am at a point in my life where if I have a partner who is not vegetarian, I am a very willing person. I am a very patient. I am realizing that I am an extremely patient person, right? So in the past, when I would have gotten into my previous relationship and so on, and like I would have requested, hey, we are going to be living in the same space together. Let us meet each other halfway. I am not going to stop you from eating meat, although I know it is wrong. I can't stop. You can't stop or force anybody to do that which they don't want to do, right? As a hardcore reality, you can't, and in fact, you should not be forcing anybody to do that which they do not want to do. The only thing that exists is cause and effect, consequences for our behavior, right? So we would have made the arrangement, hey, well, okay, we're moving in together. So prior to the arrangement, my stance is that I don't want any meat prepared at home, right? Now it's up to that person to be offended by that or not, or they could choose to, and you don't have to get into that relationship if it's a bother for you, right? Do not get into the relationship if it is a bother for you, right? So we would have agreed to that arrangement, right? You feel free to act as you please, but once we're in the same living space, there's no meat consumption to be prepared here, and it's up to you to align with that or not. It's not up to me. I accept you as you are, as a human being, but if you were to come into my energy field in terms of being around me in an intimate sense as that, you would be required to fulfill certain agreements, right? Because it is not a matter of me not accepting you. It is a matter of me knowing who I am. Me knowing who I am, right? And I know that I am already a patient person. So meet me part of the way, or else it just simply would not work, right? And likewise, if somebody lay out a requirement for me in terms of being in a romantic relationship with them, it's up to me what they will be, what are they willing or not willing to put up with, right? And it's up to each other to be offended by or not be offended by, right? So if either of the persons have their boundaries, it's not for the other person to be offended by, right? It's not a matter of me not liking you, me not wanting you, me not desiring you. It's a matter of, hey, this is my stance in life. This is where I stand in life, and this is what I am willing to accept, and this is what I'm not willing to accept. Right? So I was told the other day that, like, if I um so anyway, forget I said that. I was gonna say something, but I'll save that. Um, right. So the conversation is about taking offense or not taking offense in a relationship context, in a workplace context, in a any context. You are always going to be, you are always going to hear negative comments throughout your lives from people who matter and don't matter, right? People who matter to you will judge you, people who don't matter to you will judge you, right? It doesn't matter, right? Is to develop a kind of resilience, and resilience doesn't have to mean that you are not soft. As I was saying, resilience doesn't have to mean that you are not soft. In fact, sometimes it is the softest people who are the most resilient, even if they don't show it, right? Um, so it's up to us what we are willing to put up with as well, without necessarily being offended or having to walk on eggshells for everything that we say or do, right? So, are you willing to live with me if it is that I am going to tell you every day I see you eating a piece of chicken, that chicken was actually murdered for the sake of your pleasurable consumption, right? Just to remind you that eating meat is a murderous activity, right? And it is in fact immoral to consume meat. It is in fact immoral to consume meat, right? It is up to you whether you are willing to. You don't have to abide by what I say. You don't have to listen to anything I say. But I will still say it, right? Um so this is what I'm saying. It's up to each other to determine that which what we want to be around, what we are willing to put up with, for example, in our relationship context. And as I was saying, like, I have realized how much patience I actually do have with regard to things like principle. And some people might, this this might not resonate with some, because once there are people who, once they have a principle, they don't want to have anything to do with anybody else who not abiding by that principle. But I am different from that, because it does not make sense to me only wanting to surround yourself with um, people of the same principles as you. And I'll explain why. Is because how else are you actually going to try to make a difference in other people's lives personally, right? It don't have to be over social media or anything. But in order to actually influence the lives of anyone else, part of the journey involves actually being around the people who needs to be influenced in the direction of freedom, in the direction of obtaining that state of being, right? And in addition to that, as I always say, your soul has to reach a certain level of um, maturity in terms of this at a spiritual level, in order for you to even come to accept the reality that by eating meat, it involves a process that you're not even willing to undergo, right? Are you will If you ask 95% of people who eat meat, are you willing to take a knife and slice the chicken neck and then go and cook it. And people will tell you no, and most people are aware. They are aware that the activity is immoral, but I don't know, for some reason, right? But that's okay because evolution is actually a very slow process. Evolution is a very slow process. Collective evolution is a very slow process, and that's why sometimes it takes creating an entire world for just one soul to evolve.